Go on. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana Jamuna Tira Vanashari Jamuna Tira Vanashari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjariyari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjarihari Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki Jai. Thank you everyone for coming. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, today we'll be reading from the 10th canto, chapter 47. What does that say? 18? I think I'm supposed to have 19. And I don't know if the verse was changed. Let me see. Let's see, because I didn't pre-read the Sanskrit. 10:47, 19. Does everyone have a phone if we... Oh, 19. Oh, so they just didn't change the number. Let's see. Oh, the whole thing. So do you have a phone? Oh, so you have your... Okay, cool. So we'll just read it from the phones. And, so that's cool. Yeah, it'll take forever to change, but yeah. Let's see. Okay. Oh, John, thank you. Okay, I'm not a Sanskrit expert, and I'm assuming maybe everyone here is, but I think this is a very long verse, so we'll try our best. If we don't do too well, I'll just read it through once and move on, so it won't take forever. Vayamritamiva jima vyahritam shradadanaha. Shadadan kulika rutamivagya Krishna vado harinyaha. Kulika rutam ivagya Krishna vado harinyaha. Dadrishur asakrit etat annaka sparshatibra. The Dadrishu asakrit etat annaka sparshatibra. Smararuja upamantrin bayatam anyavarta. So I'll just read it one time, and then we'll do word for the sake of time. Vayamritamiva jima vyahritam shradadanaha kulika rutam ivagya Krishna vado harinyaha. Dadrishur asakrit etat sannaka sparshatibra. Smararuja apamantrin bayatam anyavarta. Vayam, word for word, vayam. We ritam, true. Eva, as if. Jima, deceptive. Vyahritam, his speech. Shradadanaha, trusting. Kulika, of a hunter. Rutam, the song. Eva, as if. Agyaha, foolish. Krishna, of the black deer. Vadvaha, wives. Harinyaha, the doe. Dadrishuhu, experienced. Asakrits, repeatedly. Etat, this. Tat, his. Naka, of the fingernails. Sparsha, by the touch. Tibra, sharp. Smara, of lust. Brujaha, the pain. Upamantrin, O messenger. Banyatam, please speak. Anya, another. Varta, topic. Translation and purport by the disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. So Srimati Radharani is speaking, and she says, so translation, faithfully taking his deceitful words as true, we became just like the black deer's foolish wives, who trust the cruel hunter's song. Thus we repeatedly felt the sharp pain of lust caused by the touch of his nails. O messenger, please talk about something besides Krishna. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti categorizes this statement of Srimati Radharani's as ajalpa, as defined by Srila Rupa Goswami. Janyam sasyarti datvam cha nirvedad yatra kirtitam bangyanya sukha datvam cha sa ajalpa udiritaha. Quote, a statement spoken in disgust, describing how the male lover is deceitful and brings one misery, and also implying that he gives happiness to others, is known as ajalpa, end quote. And this quote is from a book by Rupa Goswami entitled Ujvala Nilamani, 14.196. Om Agyan Samanandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Shakshumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kapaturubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktabinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai, thank you everyone for coming. Of course, I always like to, first and foremost, offer my gratitude to my mother and my brother, His Grace Jaya Jagannath Prabhu. But take this opportunity to offer some gratitude to a few people now. Many years ago when I first gave Bhagavatam class, of course, a main devotee asked me, so I have to thank him for that, because a lot of times I'm not a public speaker. I never had confidence in public speaking. So it's always good to offer gratitude for people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And the first person that asked me to give a Bhagavatam maybe many years ago, over 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, was a devotee named Dayita Prabhu. So I have to thank him for that. I refused a few times, but then he kept on asking. So I have to, we have to be grateful for so many people who encourages us, because we already have enough people who discourages us. So of course we sometimes do the encouraging, discouraging, so we can't find fault too. So. Since we're speaking about Srimati Radharani's verse, Srimati Radharani is speaking today. So, in case you, maybe some devotees here know, but in case you don't know Donovan Prabhu, this is a special tilak. Normally the tilak is kind of beige, like Sevananda's, but this is a tilak from a place of Srimati Radharani called Radhakund. And so, naturally, since Srimati Radharani is speaking today, naturally I wore this particular tilak. And I have to thank a devotee for getting me this when she went to India, Brindavani Mataji. She's so considerate that she asks many devotees, what do you want from India when I go? She went recently, a couple months ago. And I was thinking, well, you can't bring a mridanga back. So what's the next best thing? So I was like, okay, Radhakund, but I never expected her to bring it back. So when she came back, she literally had a huge bag of stuff. I'm like, are you serious? I just said Radhakund tilak out of, just because you asked. I didn't expect to get it. And so that's how considerate devotees are, and I'm very grateful for that. And even if I asked her for a mridanga, she probably would have brought it. She probably would have brought two. That's how. So next time I'll take her up on that offer, probably, because we need a mridanga now. I just partially ruined my mridanga recently, and we need mridanga for the Harinam crew now. So anyway, so there's many devotees to thank for helping us in our Krishna consciousness, however great or small. So as usual, I'd like to start off And also, Ramanta Mataji? Raminta. Yeah, her friend is Anna, and Anna, I guess, came to Christian consciousness through Brindavani Mataji. Correct? Is that correct? You too. Also, Ramanta Mataji, who was dancing so wonderfully in a kirtan last night, and so she's a result of many devotees preaching. So thank you for being here today. So thank you for that. So normally each class, my style, I'd like to start off with a quote that sets the theme of what we'll be discussing today. So this quote is by Mike Murdoch, and he says, quote, "Popularity is when other people like you. Happiness is when you like yourself." So I will say that again. Quote, "Popularity is when other people like you. Happiness is when you like yourself." End quote. So now before we discuss how this quote of today is related to today's verse, first I'd like to reference a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is verse from the first canto, chapter 18, verse 23. And it says, quote, "As the birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows." End quote. So there's also a similar verse in the one scripture we have. It's called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's from the Antya Leela, chapter 20, verses 79 through 81. In Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he writes, quote, "The sky is unlimited, but many birds fly higher and higher according to their own abilities. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are like the unlimited sky. How then can an ordinary living being describe them all? I have tried to describe them as far as my intelligence allows, as if trying to touch a drop in the midst of a great ocean." End quote. So in other words, for myself, when describing Srimati Radharani's loving pastimes with Krishna, it's like a penguin who wants to imitate an eagle by jumping off the top of a mountain. Mission impossible. But we learn from the Acharyas and Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami that we try our best. Otherwise, what else are we going to talk about? Netflix? So gossip, the news. So we try our best. And so we see that there's a common theme that appears throughout our scripture. And this theme is this. Throughout all spiritual teachings, and the theme is this. If we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. And so there's many pastimes like that, but I'll briefly mention a couple of them, these contrary points. So this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 9, verse 4 through 5. And so long story short, there was a 5-year-old boy named Dhruva Maharaj. So without going into the details, he was disrespected by his stepmother. And so his biological mother told him, in order to find peace of mind, you have to connect to God. So he went to the forest to connect to God. He was so devoted to God, he connected to God that God sent him a guru named Narada Muni. And so Narada Muni gave him further instructions of how to connect to God. So he followed these instructions, and eventually the Lord appeared before Dhruva Maharaj. So in the course of his interactions with the Lord is Ishvara Sarvabhutana Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. He sees our thoughts. He sees our intentions. I cannot see your thoughts. You cannot see my thoughts. But Krishna sees everything. He sees everyone's thoughts. So he knows what our intention is. So we can't fool anyone. So the Lord, he could understand that Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to offer some prayers to the Lord. But Dhruva was thinking, I'm a 5-year-old boy. What do I know? How can I offer prayers to the Lord? So the Lord understood his intention. So he says, my dear Dhruva Maharaj, just try your best. And so it's described that when Dhruva tried his best, the Lord took his transcendental, enchanted conch shell. A conch shell is the shell that they ring at every artsy, etc. So that's a conch shell. So the Lord took his enchanted conch shell, and he literally touched the head of Dhruva Maharaj. And because of this transcendental connection to the Lord gave him so much wisdom. And so therefore he became like a child prodigy. And this is, you could argue, this is where child prodigies come from. It's from the mercy of the Lord, from being connected to the Lord. And so otherwise we see child prodigies do some amazing, practically impossible things. And where does this come from? This comes from, we may not connect to the Lord, but sometimes the Lord connects to us to show us his glories through each other. And so in this way, Dhruva Maharaj, because he tried his best, the Lord gave him so much wisdom. But the Lord cannot empower us if we're a couch potato, if we don't try our best. How is he going to, empower us if we don't like to come to the temple, if we don't like to speak about the Lord, if the only thing we say, I'm not qualified, I'll just gossip, I'll just watch Netflix. So he can't empower a couch potato. But because Dhruva Maharaj tried his best, the Lord empowered them. So that's the main thing. We try our best. And so in a contrasting point of view, if we try to be the best, then the Lord will humble us. And so there's a story like that. So this story is, you can read the whole story, but I'm mentioning a particular verse that particularly mentions this point of trying to be the best where the Lord will humble us. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 16, verse 89. So it's the story of a proud scholar named Keshava Kashmiri. He was very proud of his intelligence, his debating skills. So he would go to every city, town, and village in India to defeat others. Why? Because he actually got a benediction from Saraswati. Who is Saraswati? She's the goddess of learning. That means if you get Saraswati's mercy, you could speak very eloquently. You could remember things at the spur of a moment. So hopefully, Saraswati, give me your mercy. If not, it's okay. The main thing is to try your best. So anyways, he worshipped Saraswati. So she gave him the benediction. My dear Keshava Kashmiri, because I am pleased with your bhakti towards me, no one can defeat you in a debate. Now, imagine that. You go into like a basketball game and you know you're going to win, right? So you're going to be walking like Michael Jordan, right? And that's what happens. Like, you know you're going to win, or any match. So naturally there's some pride is going to arise, right? So he would go around all of India defeating so many people. So then one day he heard about a prodigy, and this prodigy name was Nimai Pundit. So who's Nimai Pundit? It's actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was known as Nimai Pundit in his youth. And he had a school of learning, and he had many students. And so Keshava Kashmiri, he heard about this child prodigy. Of course, he didn't know he was the Supreme Lord himself. He was like, let me go defeat this child prodigy. Saraswati gave him benediction, nobody could defeat me. So let me go put him in his place. Let me go humble him. Not knowing I was the Supreme Lord. So one day he approached the Lord while the Lord was with his students on the bank of the Ganges River. So at this time, Nimai Pundit, or Lord Chaitanya, was only 16 years old, and he had many students. He was a prodigy. And so Keshava Kashmiri approached the Lord while they were situated on the bank of the Ganges River. So then he approached the Lord and he says, let's debate. I heard about your reputation, and you must have heard about my reputation also, so let's debate. So, it's like any competition, whether basketball, heavyweight boxing. So when you hear somebody's the best, and you hear somebody that may challenge you, you wanna challenge them also. So this is precisely what Keshava Kashmiri did. So in order to start the debate off, Keshava Kashmiri, he composed 100 poetic Sanskrit verses glorifying Mother Ganges, the Ganges River. And so in order to rebuttal, this is like you could say, I'm kind of sharing it in layman's terms. It's like a freestyle battle. He freestyled so many verses spontaneously. And so in order to rebuttal, the Lord not only recited all 100 verses back to Keshava Kashmiri word for word, but he told him all the mistakes in his composition. Now that's pretty, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it consists of 18,000 verses. And the Gita is 700 verses. And basically, Keshava Kashmiri, we have a hard time remembering like 2 or 3 verses, it's a struggle. So when Keshava Kashmiri heard the Lord recite all 100 spontaneous verses he recited back to himself, he was thinking, this is impossible, And not only that, he pointed out all my mistakes. And then when he looked at them, he was like, yes, those are mistakes. I had some redundancy in my composition. So in order to rebuttal against Lord Chaitanya, he began to speak, but nothing would come out. He was speechless, and he couldn't understand. Saraswati, where are you? Because she was supposed to empower his tongue, but nothing was coming. And so in this way, he was defeated, and all the Lord's students laughed at Keshiva Kashmiri. They was like, ah, you got defeated by a child. Ah. So they started laughing. Now, the one thing I love about this pastime is that the Lord, he told his students, do not laugh at Keshiva Kashmiri. I'm trying to humble him, not humiliate him. And so this is a lesson we can take in our own life. Sometimes people may, of course, this is the result of our karma usually, but sometimes people may disrespect us. And when they have some misfortune, we usually laugh. We're very happy. But this is not pleasing to the Lord. And so the Lord, he chastised the students. Do not laugh at him. And when the Lord humbled them, he began to glorify Keshiva Kashmiri. He says, great poets like you, there's not many great poets like you, such and such. He kept on honoring him just so to encourage his Krishna consciousness. So that's a lesson we could take in our own life. You know, there's no happiness without Krishna consciousness, so we should never want anyone to leave Krishna consciousness, even if they disrespectful. So therefore the Lord always taught us, Trinadapi Sunichena, Taror Eva Sahishnuna, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. And one's disposition should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and ready to offer all respect to others without expecting respect in return. And so we see in this way that the Lord exemplified this in his pastime. He was, he offered all respect to Keshiva Kashmiri. He didn't expect respect, but of course the Lord, he can understand who's proud and who's humble. We can't. Sometimes we consider people who are consider people proud because we're envious sometimes. Why? Because we're not Ishwara Sarvabhutanam. We can't actually see people's hearts. And so we leave the judgment to the Lord. And this is a lesson we could take. But the whole point is that because Keshiva Kashmiri tried to be the best, the Lord humbled them. And so that night, when Keshiva Kashmiri went home, the goddess of learning, Saraswati, appeared in his dream. And Keshiva Kashmiri said, what's up? I thought you gave me the power that nobody could defeat me in a debate. Why did you allow this teenage boy to defeat me? So Saraswati said, she was like, my dear Keshiva Kashmiri, I forgot to tell you, that 16-year-old boy, that's my boss. He told me not to give you any wisdom, just to humble you, and just so you could serve the Supreme Lord and not think that you're the Supreme Lord. And so in this way, Keshiva Kashmiri, he became a devotee of the Lord. And so this is the lesson we could take. And what is that lesson? If we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. So, moving on. We started off today's class with a quote. And basically the quote was, popularity is when other people like you. Happiness is when you like yourself. And so how is this quote related to today's verse? Well, most people will consider popularity, they will equate popularity with happiness, right? But according to all universal spiritual teachings, what does popularity mean? Popularity means to surround ourselves with people, and happiness means to surround ourselves with principles. So I'll ask you a question. Anyone can answer it in class today. If you had a choice to surround yourself with people or surround yourself with principles, what would you choose and why? Here, actually, can you get the mic? Can you get the mic so that way I won't have to repeat your answers? And maybe if it's broadcasting today, then other people can hear your answers to save time also. So the question is, if you had a choice to surround yourself with people or surround yourself with principles, which would it be and why? Of course, you guys probably know where I'm going with this, but I would like to hear your answers.
Sure thing. I would like to surround myself with principles. Mm-hmm. It's something that I've just kind of always related to. Mm-hmm. I was never really surrounded much by people at a large chunk of my life, mm-hmm. Times. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had God and myself. So, you know, I think that was always enough for me.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Let's go in the direction now. Who can outdo his answer?
So
Who can be the best? Go ahead.
the principles are people, but
Principles are people?
my question is,
You actually was going in a direction also, but go ahead, go ahead.
if you choose people, does that mean you'd be without principles?
No, well, of course, I'll kind of explain a little bit more, because the fact is that principles come from people. How do we get principles? Through people who give us. But that's another thing. But as of right now, exclusive answer, one or the other. If you had a choice, people or principles, choose one. And why?
People are principles. I guess I would have to choose principles, because if I just choose people, it would be not a good thing.
It would, Hare Krishna, it would what?
It would not be such a good thing.
And why not?
Because of the tendency to just want to enjoy, and so many things, propensities, and it would just be not such a good thing.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. So, would you like to? Yeah. Oh, great. So.
Principles, of course, because like when it helps you to stay on your path. And when you stay on your path, then people come who have the same kind of principles, and then you kind of enjoy the company better than just like random people.
Very nice, very nice. Exactly, you're all going in a direction. So, Naveen, you can answer the question if you like also. So the question is that if you had a choice to surround yourself with people or surround yourself with principles, what would you choose and why?
That's interesting. So hard.
And I'm not talking about Naveen Krishna Prabhu. This is Naveen Mataji, Josh's wife. So in case devotees know who I'm talking about. So if you hear a girl's voice, you're like, man, he's changed. So it's Naveen, Josh's wife. So
it's hard because I would want to be surrounded with the right people, which I would be able to uphold the principles through them. Because it's one thing to try to do it by yourself, but having other people who are on the same page help you hold accountable and remind you when you forget. And I just know that for me, it holds true, because when I forget, even slightly, I get prompted through other people. So that's why I'm in the middle, but I would say maybe people.
Oh, nice. You mean the right people, you said?
The right people, yeah, not just Maya people, right? People, devotees, the devotees.
Jai, very nice.
Does that count?
Answer. I see Lila Mandri. Did you want to add? Oh, great. So that gives me time to look at my, you guys are helping me out. That gives me time to look at my notes, actually. That's why I
couldn't hear everybody because of the acoustics, I guess.
Did you hear the question?
I heard the question.
Okay, good.
So, very nice question, Prabhu. So, what came to my mind was I would rather be with people who have principles. because I think whether we like it or not, our association influences us a lot. So even if we have principles, we'll lose our principles if we are not surrounded by people with principles. So that was my answer.
Yes. Everyone's answer is going in the same direction I'm going in. So everyone's answer is correct, and nobody is better than anyone else. So everyone's answer is all correct. And so, unfortunately, of course, like I said, surround ourselves with the right people. There's many verses that say that sadhu sangha sarva shastra koi lava matra sadhu sanghe sarva siddhi hoy. Even by one moment, lava matra, one fraction of a moment with a devotee who has principles, it could change the trajectory of one's entire life. And that's pretty much why we're here, right? One moment is association with a devotee who has principles. And even if they didn't have principles, their main principle, even if you could say their standard of Krishna consciousness wasn't so high, maybe based on their immaturity, maybe based on that they were just new to Krishna consciousness, still their principle is they're trying to help us, so they give us these books. And just by that moment's association, here we are. And so we could be very grateful for that. So obviously there's no question of principles without people, obviously. So you can't have one without the other. However, often when you hear, if you hear any promotion for a yoga studio, a well-being center, a massage therapy parlor, or even a temple, what do you see on their website? If you come to our temple or a well-being center, there will be peace, love, compassion, serenity. Then when you get there, you're like, this is false advertisement. Because we all have our faults, right? We're conditioned souls. So when you come to the temple, the well-being center, etc., you're like, wow, And so this is not good. So the point is that surrounding ourselves with people outside our control, surrounding ourselves with principles inside our control. And so you have no control over if you get the popularity, right? Sometimes the likes, the followers, the tweets or the retweets, they go up and sometimes they go down, right? So what happens when they go up? You're happy, right? What happens when they go down? You're unhappy. And why? Because you didn't surround yourself with principles. And what is that main principle? Humility. I'm not going to always be in the spotlight. And so in this way, surrounding ourselves with people outside our control, surrounding ourselves with principles inside our control. And therefore, this is why Lord Chaitanya says, Nadanam najanam nasundiram kavitam vajaga ishakamaye mama jamani jamadishware babata bhaktir ahaitu ki twai. He says, Nadanam. Actually, he says, Najanam. No followers. I don't want any followers. And what does he want? Ahaitu ki bhakti. What does that mean? Surround yourself with principles, right? And because we see, like I said, to the degree we're attached to people, then to that degree we become angry when people abandon us. And so this is basically how it's related to today's verse. First of all, before I go too much deep into this, I can't speak about Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna, but we see in these verses that we've been discussing in the last few days and the days come, she's kind of condemning Krishna for abandoning her and seeing other women. And in this way, it's a transcendental pastime, loving pastime, etc. But of course, we can't relate to this because if people abandon us, it doesn't bring us ecstasy, it only brings us misery. So this is the whole point of mentioning the difference between people and principles. So I'm bringing it down to a level, my penguin level. I'm not an eagle. So that was how the class started off. You speak according to your capacity. So I can't speak about Srimati Radharani's loving pastimes when Krishna abandons her to see another woman, and then it's transcendental love pastimes, and I'm like, really? So for us, this material world is considered a perverted reflection of material world. So when people abandon us, naturally we become very miserable. And so it's an opportunity to surround ourselves with principles, to go deeper into our principles. Because why? We have no control over that. So what do we do have control over? We have control over surrounding ourselves with principles. And that's why we're here right now, hearing Bhagavatam, coming to Manga Arti. Of course, I can't say that. But I can say that for all of you guys. So thank you for holding the temple down. But so therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, Nadanam najanam nasundaram. Nadanam najanam. I do not want any followers. What do I want? Ahaituki bhakti, birth after birth. Why? Because surrounding myself with followers outside my control, or surrounding myself with bhakti inside my control. So there's a nice quote. It says, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and can't control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. And so we see that even in, we'll take the life of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was crucified because one of his disciples named Judas betrayed him. But why was Jesus always peaceful? Because his forgiveness never betrayed him. His principles never betrayed them. His mercy, his compassion, his love. So this is a lesson we could get from all the great saints throughout history. So there's a nice quote by Chanaka Pundit. Prabhupada will always quote Chanaka Pundit in his purports to the Bhagavatam. And so this is from a book called Sri Chanaka Niti, chapter 12, verse 11. And so Chanaka Pundit, he writes, quote, Truth is my mother, and realized knowledge is my father. Righteousness is my brother, mercy is my friend. Inner peace is my wife, forgiveness is my son. These are my kinsmen. So he's saying the same thing. We should be less concerned about surrounding ourselves with people and more concerned about surrounding ourselves with principles. Why? Because surrounding ourselves with people outside our control, surrounding ourselves with principles inside our control. So therefore the Bhagavatam says, Shrimvatan Swakata Krishna Punya Shravanam Kirtana Hridiyanta Stohiya Bhadrani Vidunoti Surhit Satam. Krishna says, to the degree we try our best by hearing the Bhagavatam, by trying to surround ourselves with principles, then Krishna, who is situated in our heart, he will purify you of all your bad qualities that surround us. So we're surrounded by good qualities and we're surrounded by bad qualities. Actually, when we're born, we're only surrounded by bad qualities, actually. So we actually have to cultivate the good qualities, actually. Just like nobody has to tell you. We see the great saints. They never come down. They never tell us, I'm going to teach you how to throw a temper tantrum when you don't get your way. Really? I already know how to do that. I already know how to throw a temper tantrum when I don't get my way. They teach us how not to throw a temper tantrum when we don't get our way. Humility, tolerance, forgiveness, right? Because we see that children, they have no, what do you call it? What is that thing that dogs wear to cover their mouth? Muzzle. Children have no muzzle on their mouth. They say whatever that comes to their mind, right? And so therefore the first lesson in the, we have a book by Sri Rupa Goswami. It's called The Nectar of Instruction. So the very first lesson in the Nectar of Instruction is Vacho Vegam Manasa Krodha Vegam. He says, humility begins with muzzling your mouth. Vacho, controlling your speech. And then he says, it begins with controlling your mind. Now I was thinking, that makes no sense at all because whatever we think, we speak, right? So I was thinking, it should be reversed because I was thinking of a quote when I heard that. It says, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character becomes your destiny. So everything begins with our thoughts, right? So why didn't Sri Rupa Goswami say, first control your thoughts and then your speech? Well, he was probably thinking of most people who are like children, even children. First, the parent says, control your speech. You have whatever you're thinking. If it's rude, it doesn't matter a child to say anything rude to somebody, whatever they're thinking. They don't think it's rude. They're just like, I'm speaking my mind. So what does the parent do? Well, I wouldn't know. Well, my parent says, well, maybe your child is old enough to, maybe he doesn't have enough language, vocabulary to disrespect people, which is good. Huh? Yeah. So the first thing a parent usually says, control your tongue. And then they'll teach them, yes, then you can't think these negative thoughts because how long so Rupa Goswami says, first control your speech. And then control your mind. And the result of not controlling our mind is that we'll get ourselves in a lot of trouble. So that's what we're all here for, how to control our thoughts, because Krishna's Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, he sees everyone's thoughts and our intentions, so we can't get away with anyone. So in order to have a better relationships with devotees, we have to mind our thoughts. And so I normally go on a tangent, but let me get back to the script so I could get all the points I want today. So there's also a nice quote that reminds, it says, a bird sitting in a tree is not afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch, but in her own wings. So it's similar to what we've been discussing before, that people are like that branch. Sometimes they give us support and sometimes they don't. Just like Jesus, he got support from his disciple, Judas, but then that support was taken away. But why didn't Jesus condemn Judas? Because he flew with his own wings. What does that mean? His own good qualities, his forgiveness, his mercy, his tolerance. And so this is a lesson we could take in our life, is that sometimes people support us and sometimes people don't. Sometimes we support people and sometimes we don't. And sometimes the reasons are just and sometimes the reasons are unjust. So we all have our karma in this world. In this way, there's a nice verse in the Bhagavatam, Tate anukampam susamicha mano bunjana eva makritam vipakam Vapor Birvedadan Namaste Jiveta Yomuti Padesadayabag. It's a verse spoken by Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, chapter 14, I believe. I think this is the last chapter Prabhupada translated, and it's a famous verse that Prabhupada quote. It says, when bad things happen to oneself, including when people betray you, when people abandon you, a devotee, they consider it that I'm only getting a small portion of what I deserve. Because if we look at our own life, you know, we're all conditioned souls. We've also betrayed people, abandoned people. And even if we didn't do it in this life, we have millions of other lives. So Krishna sees everything. And so this is a verse of how we could surround ourselves with humility. And what does humility mean? It means that when people mistreat me, I've probably done the same thing too. So therefore in the Bible, Jesus says, he who is free of sin, let him be the first to cast the stone. And so we see that's what all relationships are. Everyone's casting stones at each other, and nobody's putting the stone down. And so therefore it's a stone fight in food fights. So this is a lesson we can take in our own life. So most people think, so you're not convinced. But most people, you guys are devotees. You've been practicing to a greater or lesser degree for a few years or many years. So you may be convinced that, yes, surrounding myself with principles is better than surrounding myself with people or popularity. But still, some people may not be convinced. But let's look at some pastimes where it might convince us a little bit more, that popularity doesn't equal happiness. So let's look at the pastime of Hidania Kashipu. So it's a long, I'm not going to go into detail among the pastimes to save time, but long story short, so this reference I'm referencing is from the 7th canto, chapter 4, verse 14. So in this verse, it basically says, Hiranyakashipu, he had control over 99.9% of the universe. Everyone honored him, including Narada Muni. Narada Muni, everyone was forced to honor him. So sometimes people may honor us either because we have a position, they're scared of us, so they may honor us, or they may genuinely honor us. But it doesn't matter. Hiranyakashipu, he got the honor he wanted. So 99.9% of everyone in the universe honored and respect him. There was only one person who didn't honor him. Who you think that was? Everyone knows. Yeah, Prahlad. But not only Prahlad, who else? Who else do you think? Prahlad's classmates, his kindergarten classmates. So only 0.1% of the universe didn't honor Hiranyakashipu as the center of the universe. So he was popular. His popularity was, he had 99.9% more popularity than Prahlad, but he was more miserable than Prahlad. That's the amazing thing. So people think if I'm popular, if I have all the votes, if I have all the likes, if I have all the retweets, I'll be happy. But no, he wasn't happy. Why wasn't he happy? Because Prahlad told him, my dear father. So one day, Hiranyakashipu, he went to his 5-year-old son. He says, my dear Prahlad, what is the best thing you learned in school? So Prahlad said, my dear father, the best thing I've learned in school is that Krishna's the center of the universe and not you. Imagine somebody telling you that you're not the center of the universe, somebody else is. So Martin Luther King, he says a nice quote. He says, nobody is unhappy about praise, even when they know they don't deserve it, and even when they don't believe it. The only people who aren't unhappy about praise is when that praise is going too much towards somebody else. Now, you may think, so much praise is going to Lord Vishnu, or Prahlad's classmates were honoring Prahlad. But who had the majority of the praise? Hiranyakashipu. But he's still content. So what does that mean? That indicates that popularity doesn't equate happiness. Only surrounding yourself with principles equates to happiness. And this is precisely what Prahlad did. Prahlad only had a few classmates who honored him. Everyone else in the universe honored Hiranyakashipu. And why was Prahlad content? Because he was surrounding himself with Krishna bhakti, with Krishna's love, with these principles. And so it's like a white wall with one black spot. You don't notice any other white, only that one black spot, right? And if you're a painter, you're like, this painter, he doesn't know how to do anything right. So the reality is that this is the material world. Everything will not go 100% our way. And so this is the lesson we can take. We can have practically almost 100%, But if 0.1% things don't go our way, then that's enough to take away 100% of our happiness. And so this is a lesson we could take in our own life. So there's a couple of similar pastimes. They're basically the similar pastimes, and I'll briefly mention them. So another similar pastime to this Hiranyakashipu is from the 4th canto, chapter 2, verse 6. So it's a pastime of a proud king, another proud king, like Hiranyakashipu. His name was Daksha. And so Daksha had a daughter. His daughter's name was Sati. And so one day Sati came to her father. She says, "My dear father, I've met the man of my dreams." And he was like, "Really? Wow." He was thinking, another prince, another person with a lot of wealth, just like you guys probably all seen the Disney movie Aladdin, right? And what did Princess Jasmine say? She comes from a lot of wealth. This is precisely the Aladdin story in this Bhagavatam. Who was the man of Princess Jasmine's dream? Aladdin. And what was Aladdin's net worth? Broke. Huh? Yeah, zero, nothing. And this is the man. So imagine a daughter comes to her rich father, a wealthy daughter, and she comes to her wealthy father, and she says, "I met the man of my dream." "Really? What's his net worth?" "Nothing, father, but love." Is the father going to be happy? So no, he wasn't happy. And not only that, the man of her dream was Lord Shiva. So although we see very beautiful pictures of Lord Shiva on the internet, it's described that he covers his body in ashes from a crematorium of dead bodies. He has matted hair, dreadlocks. He wears skull, bone, and snake garlands. He has a scorpion belt, and he wears a loincloth. And imagine the man of her dream walks in like that. Now, if you're your daughter, or if you had a daughter and your daughter brings it would be hard to maintain your devotional qualities, right? You're like, "Are you crazy?" So in this way, the whole point of me mentioning this pastime is that Daksha, he was very proud of his wealth. He had no respect for anyone who didn't have wealth. And so one day, it's described that all the members throughout the universe, in every planet, they all came together to perform a great universal sacrifice. And so one day, Daksha, he walked in the arena of this sacrifice, and all the members of this sacrifice stood up in respect for Daksha, the sun god, Vayu, the wind god, so many demigods, so many people throughout the universe. Everyone stood up in respect for him, except one person, Lord Shiva, the man of his daughter's dreams, Lord Shiva. So it's described that Lord Shiva, he didn't purposely disrespect Daksha. It's described that he was actually so absorbed in Krishna Prema, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadaiva Hridayeshu, Vilokayanti Yam Shamasandana Chintaguna Sarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This verse on the Brahma Samhita, it says, when our eyes are anointed with prema, we don't notice anything else. Just like in this world, even though it's mostly exploitation, but we could take the mundane example of this world. When somebody's so-called in love, they don't notice anything. You see that building explosion? What building explosion? I see my lover everywhere, right? You don't notice anything. So in much the same way, it's described that because Lord Shiva, he was so connected to the Lord. Like, why is a computer attractive? Because it's connected to his power source, right? If it's disconnected from its power source, it's unattractive. So if we're disconnected from our Wi-Fi, we're unhappy. If we're connected to our Wi-Fi, we don't notice. And that's practically, when you're connected to your TikTok and your YouTube, your Wi-Fi, you don't hear anything your friends or your family are saying around you. You are so absorbed in the video. So it's described that Lord Shiva, he was so connected to the Lord that he did not see Lord Shiva walk in the universal sacrifice. But Shiva, Daksha, he thought Lord Shiva was disrespecting him on purpose. So he criticized him. And not only that, he was envious of him. He says, how is it possible that a poor-looking person, he has a better seat of honor in this sacrifice than me? So not only that, 3 things caused Daksha misery. 1, his daughter wanted to marry Shiva. 2, Shiva ignored them. And not only that, Shiva had a better seat of honor at this sacrifice than Daksha. And so in this way, But the lesson is, Dasha had 99.9% of everyone in the universe respecting him. One person didn't respect him. That was enough to take away 100% of his happiness. And so finally, I'll mention one last pastime, and this is from the Bible, and it's similar to these two other pastimes. So this, before I mention the reference here, so long story short, I say long story short, it's actually long story long, actually. Let me stop lying to you guys. Long story long. Once upon a time, the king of Persia, he had a very prestigious banquet. He would invite all of his friends and family. And so in the course of this banquet, he told one of his servants, go bring my wife. Why? Because his wife was very beautiful and he wanted to show her off to everyone. He used her as a trophy wife. So he says, he told his servant, go get my wife. So, she was in her chambers. So in this way, the king servant went to go get this king's wife. And so in this way, the servant, he approached the wife, my dear madam, the king would like you to attend this very prestigious banquet. Can you please come? And so she knows she was being used as a trophy wife, so she refused to come. So in this way, the king divorced her. He divorced her, and he divorced her to get a new wife who would follow his every command. So of course, this is actually a divine arrangement. You may say, yes, the king is a jerk, but this was actually a part of a whole divine arrangement, actually. So when the king banished his wife from the kingdom, divorced her, he told one of his primary servants, officials, and this official name was Haman. He says, my dear Haman, go out into the town and bring every young, beautiful woman to the palace so that I may pick a new bride to be my wife who will follow my every command. And so Haman, in this way, he followed the king's order. So Haman got on his horseback ride along with many other officials from the kingdom. So in this way, it's described that just as the servant of a king is offered the same respect as the king, so also when Haman and all the other officials went into town, everyone offered him as just as much respect as they will offer the king. So everyone bowed down to Haman. They were like, this is the official of the king, so let me offer my respect. Everyone bowed down. So in the course of him, you could say, collecting all the beautiful women in Persia, there was only one person who did not bow down to Haman. And this person was a Jew, and his name was Mordecai. And so when Haman was on his horseback, he saw everyone else is bowing down. How come you're not following suit? He became so angry. Ugh! But then he thought he let it go because he had a mission for the king. And that was to collect all the beautiful women and bring them back to the palace. So in this way, Haman, he brought all the beautiful women back to the palace. So in this way, the king, he approached every beautiful woman. He was like, next. It was like a beauty contest, a beauty pageant, right? So we see that, these beauty contests. Next. So finally, he picked a very beautiful woman named Esther. And so it's described that in order to marry the king, you had to be from Persia. You had to be basically from the same religion as the king, the same culture, the same nationality. So in this way, Esther qualified to be the king's wife. So in this way, he married his new bride who would follow his every wish. Or so he thought she would. So, long story short, it's described that Haman, he forgot about the whole incident of being disrespected by Mordecai the Jew. Okay, everyone else offered me respect, bowed down to me, except this Jew, Mordecai. But, a few days had passed. He forgot about the whole incident, and he was going about his day happily in high spirits. Woo! But then, I'm going to quote this verse from the Bible. I'm leading it up. So this is a passage from the Holy Bible. It's from the Holy Bible. It's from the book of Esther, chapter 5, verses 9 through 13. And Haman, this is describing what Haman's mentality is when he saw Mordecai again. So it says, quote, Haman went out that day happy and in high spirits. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage. against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. Calling together his friends and Zeresh, his wife, Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth, his many sons, and all of the ways the king had honored him, and how he had elevated him above the other nobles and officials. And that's not all, Haman added. I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave, and she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. Now, here's the most important, interesting part that Haman says in the Bible. He says, but all of this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see that Jew Mordecai. So he's saying, I have lots of wealth, a beautiful wife, many sons. I'm the top official. I have so many things to be grateful for. None of that gives me satisfaction when I see Mordecai, when I see only one person who disrespects me. And so what's the lesson we could take? The lesson we can take is that, as I was mentioning before, just as a computer is attractive when it's connected to its power source and unattractive when it's disconnected from its power source, so if we're connected to Krishna, we remain happy. If we're disconnected from Krishna, we remain happy. So therefore in the Gita, chapter 10, verse 8, what does Krishna say? Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate, iti matvam bhajate mam buddha bhava samavitaha. He says, aham sarvasya, aham, I, sarvasya, I am the power source of everything. And those who are Buddha, those who are truly wise, connect to me. And what's the result of connecting to Krishna? You receive peace and happiness. And so therefore in chapter 2, verse 66 of the Gita, what does it say? Krishna says, one who is not connected to the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there's no peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? So in order to have happiness, we have to connect to Krishna. Just like in order to have happiness, you connect to your Wi-Fi. So what's the lesson we could take from these pastimes? But before we get to that, so therefore there's a famous verse from the Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 18, verse 12. Prabhupada will always quote. He says, what's the result of, this verse says, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana sarva guna istatra samasate suraha. The result of connecting to Krishna, Bhagavati Bhakti, that means to connect to Krishna. And what's the result? Sarva gunais. Oh yeah, I was last time from the other class. Sarva gunais, what does that mean? It means you surround yourself with principles. That's Krishna's mercy. He surrounds you with principles. And in that purport, Prabhupada lists the 26 qualities of a devotee, or the 26 principles. By connecting to Krishna, ideally if we connect to Krishna properly, then Krishna, by his mercy, he surrounds us with principles. In this way, if people betray us, no problem. I have my principles that surround me. And so the lesson we could take from all these pastimes is that if we're connected to Krishna, then even if we're not surrounded by an entourage of friends and family, we'll still remain happy. On the other hand, if we're disconnected from Krishna, then even if we are surrounded by an entourage of friends and family, then we'll still remain unhappy. And so what does that mean? That means we should be less concerned about surrounding ourselves with people and more concerned about surrounding ourselves with principles. And so that's our topic for today. I would have liked to get to more, but there's not enough time. But if there's any comments, and maybe I'll get to a few points based on your questions or comments. So, but thank you all for participating. And
Thank you for class. Many great points. A lot of things stand out, but the last thing you said stands out a lot because it's like anything. It's comparing Krishna to like light, you know, and like the absence of light is darkness. The absence of love is, you know, just this hate and craziness. So the absence of Krishna is bad. So it's, you know, the principles and the association is important, but it's not everything. You know, if you don't have your principles and if you don't have Krishna, it doesn't compute. So you made a lot of great points, and I just kept thinking, I don't have it clear in my head, but I just know that the absence of Krishna is just the darkness and the absence. He's the light, and many things, and that we need to stop trying to be favorites to people and be more where, trying to be Krishna's favorite and in this way instead, because you'll never be disappointed. So thank you for class.
Jaya, thank you. That reminds me of a nice quote. It says, like everything else, I think it says, regarding favorites, sometimes we say I'm God's favorite, so therefore God is on my side. Sometimes we think like that, even if we don't verbalize it. But I think Abraham Lincoln, he says, our question shouldn't be whether God is on our side, but whether we're on God's side. Actually, God was on the side of both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. But the question is, only the Pandavas were on God's side and not the Kauravas. So that's what our question. We shouldn't never think, oh, I'm God's favorite. God is on my side, as if God is subject to our command. We should question ourselves, am I on God's side? Am I following these principles to the best of my ability? And also I'd like to, I thanked everyone else here, but I would especially like to, I already told you this, but I'm telling you now, again, because there's no question of, what do I say? Gratitude never gets old, basically. But definitely we wouldn't be doing Harinam. I already mentioned this to you, Harinam, without you and your husband. So very grateful for that. That got the Harinam going. And I've been asking devotees for many years. Nobody wants to go with me. So thank you. Thank you for jump-starting this Harinam. It's been a dry spell for at least 6-7 years. And hopefully nothing crashes our plans, but it's Kali Yuga, so as long as you surround yourself with principles, we'll be good. But as soon as you don't like to hear Bhagavatam, you start criticizing, you don't take every opportunity to offer gratitude to devotees. Every day is an opportunity. We take all the opportunities we want, right, to criticize people. We never miss those opportunities. And we see if we take those opportunities, we're never happy, never happy. And so therefore, we see that there's so much disharmony. So thank you for everyone, Donovan too also. So anybody else? Would you? Yes? All right, good. All right, cool, great. Oh, hi, what time is it? Here, one last point. So long story short, I never got the opportunity to share the Ramayana. But long story short, Lord Rama was supposed to take the throne. And without going into the details, I'm kind of speeding it up, but this is a very important point before I finish. Lord Rama had a stepmother who secretly banished him to the forest. So Lord Rama's father was about to make him king of the throne. And so that's almost like winning the lottery. Your mouth is watering, and they're about to hand you the check, right? For like $1 billion. Your mouth is watering. And then somebody says, the IRS is here. They're taking all your money. You have outstanding debt. So in this way, Rama was banished to a forest for 14 years. And the interesting thing is that when he was, so why was he still content? He surrounded himself with principles. Of course, he's the Lord, right? But he never condemned the person who unfairly banished him. So this is a lesson we could take. When people, you could say, quote unquote, unfairly, but the thing is that you can only say unfairly banish the Lord because the Lord is not under karma like us. He committed no sins. So, but still, he's above the law, but he's acting like he's below the law. We're below the law, but we act like we're above the law. We say, I'm perfect, I commit no sins, whatever happens to me, I'm innocent. No, nobody's innocent in this world. So wherever we get, so the whole point is that when Lord Rama was unfairly banished to the forest by Queen Kaikeyi, he never condemned her, nor did he ask anyone else to condemn her. He actually told Sita and Lakshmana, serve Queen Kaikeyi. That's the ultimate form of surrounding yourself with principles, when you can offer respect to people who don't offer you respect. And so that's the indication. There's a quote. It says, you will know that forgiveness has begun when you remember those who hurt you and have the power to wish them well. That's when you know forgiveness, you've been surrounded by forgiveness. And so we know it. We know we could put on the whole show like we want, but when we see that person, something, you feel like, so we all know that whether or not. So what does that mean? That means we need to connect to the Lord a little bit deeper. We know to go. That means our bhakti, our devotional service, is probably superficial, that the Lord is not giving us these principles because we're making too many offenses and we're so duplicitous. And so if we're not content in so many associations, then I indicate. And so not only did Lord Rama was content when he was betrayed, when people didn't surround him, but here's the most important lesson. Anyway, this is most important. This is my last point. He also wasn't surrounded by people, nor was he surrounded by money, fame, and power. So where does our happiness, our prestige come in life? From people and from our position and our money, right? But what happens when you lose your prestigious job? You don't want to come to the temple anymore. Oh, why? Because you're embarrassed, right? That sometimes happens, right? If you had a prestigious job and you're working at Walgreens now. Oh, what do you do for a living? I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. So what do you do? I work at Walgreens. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sometimes that happens. And so, but this is the lesson in life, is that sometimes we have our ups, sometimes we have our downs. And we see if our bhakti is connected to our prestige, then what happens when our prestige is gone, then our bhakti is gone. So there's a nice, I'll end with this. It says, money, fame, power, and high education increase your net worth, not your self-worth. You were already valuable with a smaller apartment and no title behind your name. The only title you need to feel good about yourself is this: child of Almighty God. And so Martin Luther King, I'll end with this. He also says, even if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should go out and sweep streets like Michelangelo painted, like Beethoven composed music, like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to know about Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know about the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't even have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love, and everyone can be that servant. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishneta Nitya Das Krishneta Tatata Shati Beta Abe Prakash. And so this is our understanding. So anyway, thank you. I'll always go over time. Please forgive me. So I hope you surround yourself with forgiveness. Otherwise, you won't like me. So I hope you do. Thank you, everyone. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai and Granta Raj. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Glory Premanand.